sendings off, disallowed goals.
It's just who we are, mate.
Enzo Fernandez heads it in for Chelsea.
And it's happening again for Tottenham. Oh my goodness, Sunderland are going to win it here at Stamford Bridge.
We said many times that when you cannot win, it's important that you don't lose.
I feel like Chelsea fans can generally tolerate quite a lot. What will not be tolerated is going and getting battered at Tottenham. It will not be allowed.
Pressure on Thomas Frank, but his side have responded. Everton 0, Tottenham 3.
Hopefully in the end of the year, the stats are fantastic away and fantastic home.
He's fixing the main problem what Tottenham had. So he's gone in there and gone, we're going to be better defensively first and foremost, and we'll sacrifice the looking great and creativity for a little while.
Chelsea are always their kryptonite.
It is a feisty derby, a test of credentials.
Spurs take on Chelsea this weekend. Two sides with the ambition to compete at the very highest level. But we're asking, which club is better set up to succeed in the next few years? Let's start, Kweku, with your beloved Chelsea. Young squad, huge potential, but then there are some financial issues that they're having to deal with because of their sort of broader and wider approach. Make the case for me why you think Chelsea are in a better place to succeed than Spurs.
I've already seen evidence of it. Chelsea last season, I know people want to diminish it, but won 2 trophies. Won the Conference League, which we expected to win, and won the Club World Cup that nobody expected us to win, especially when faced against PSG, the best team in the world in the final, turned them over 3-0 and showed that we belonged at that level. And so this is a Chelsea team that have already started to put trophies on the board. Last year at the back end of the season when they needed to win most of their games to qualify for the Champions League, having the toughest run in fixtures, they did that and qualified for the Champions League. And so obviously Chelsea are not a perfect team. There are still frailties in this squad. But in terms of going forward, this is an ownership group that have shown ambition and will want to return Chelsea to the very top of football. Haven't seen that from Spurs, and I know Daniel Levy has gone, but I haven't lived in the world where that exists, where Spurs have tried to be one of the best teams in the world, where I've seen it from Chelsea and I'm seeing it from Chelsea, and it's an unconventional approach. But I like where we're going, and I think already, if you look at the Chelsea squad, there's already 2 or 3 world-class players. I look at Spurs' team, and I don't see many.
Who's got the better manager, though? Maresca or Frank? I think it's a really interesting
That's
debate.
a really good question. That's a tougher debate. I think Thomas Frank is maybe more solid and more kind of stable. Maresca's not managed as much at the highest level, but we can't diminish last season. His remit was to get Chelsea back in the Champions League. He did that through the league position, won the Conference League and won the Club World Cup. So I think they're very level at the moment. In terms of ranking Premier League managers, I think you have managers like Arteta and Pep that are out there. And I think Emery's probably a level above Maresca and Thomas Frank. But I think they're level. I think Frank and Maresca are level. I wouldn't swap Maresca for Frank, though.
Let's get the Spurs perspective. Let's welcome in Chris Cowlin from the Spurs Chat Pod. Chris, how you doing, mate?
Harry, good afternoon to you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for joining us, mate. Thanks for joining us. You've heard the Chelsea argument. Do you believe that that Spurs, I beg your pardon, are in a better position? And if so, why?
Well, could I just react to that? Talking about ambition, talking about trophies, I think that if any team in the Premier League, or any team in England for that matter, spent over £1 billion, they should be in a position to be competing for every single trophy, and not only competing for them, winning most of the trophies. So, you've got to ask yourself where that £1 billion has gone and how it has been wasted. And it's not just Chelsea that have wasted a lot of money. Other Premier League teams have done so as well. But, for Spurs, I just want to see Spurs competing at the highest level. I want to see us, competing for a Premier League title, competing for the Champions League. Of course, Harry, we've spoke many times over the years, and we've spoke about so many different managers and Spurs going round in circles. What Thomas Frank has done here so far at Tottenham in the few months that he's been, and I completely agree with Danny Murphy's comments there in the intro. He's made Spurs a very different team to play against. He's made us a difficult team to play against, defensively strong. A little bit boring going forward, if I'm completely honest, in the games that we've seen so far. But, you can't have it all. You've got to have a little bit of patience as fans. It's a little bit frustrating us going forward at the moment with the likes of Richarlison, Tell, Mawani up front, because we're not really doing a lot in that final third in scoring goals. We're scoring more goals from set pieces via central defenders than actual strikers. But time will tell. I feel like Thomas Frank has done a great job. The club is set up extremely well. Of course, Daniel Levy had a lot of critics from the Tottenham Hotspur fan base over the last 20 years or so. But he has left the club in a great position, and it is about time now that Spurs kick on, spend the right money, make the right decisions in transfer windows, and Spurs can kick on and hopefully compete for the highest honours possible.
Chris, can I ask you this? Because obviously Daniel Levy's departed, and as you said and alluded to there, lots of Spurs fans have felt for a while that actually Daniel Levy was a big part of the reason that Spurs weren't where they should be in terms of the size of the football club versus trophies or whatever. Do you think that Daniel Levy going makes that much difference to the point where you can now confidently say that Spurs are in just as good, if not a stronger position than Chelsea to go on and compete for the big trophies? Because while the ownership is the same, I struggle to see things looking very, very different for Spurs.
Harry, nobody can answer that. Nobody can answer that at all until next summer's transfer window. Of course, the January window, we all hope that all of our clubs go out and spend, big money and bring in,
But you must have an idea, Chris. You must have an idea whether you or not you think that
there is no idea, Harry. At this point, because the board are exactly the same, apart from, the owners are exactly the same. So are they going to do things differently to what they have done in the last 20 years? That is the huge question that no one at this point knows the answer to. And there's no point me sitting here saying I'm confident or non-confident. It doesn't mean anything. And any Spurs fan will tell you the exact same thing. It's difficult in January. The summer window will tell you the big difference, whether we're going to operate in a different way, whether we're going to spend more money, whether we're going to make better decisions than what we have in the past. But every Tottenham fan, I can tell you, we all want to be competing at the very highest level. And when I talk about Daniel Levy, I feel like Daniel Levy, a lot of the time, most transfer windows, especially the summer windows, where we were always one or two players short from really competing, from really backing the manager. You've got to be able to back the manager wholeheartedly, to say we want to be competing on all fronts. Daniel Levy, before his departure at the start of this season, said we want Tottenham competing on all fronts. And then we let Heung-min Son leave and we haven't signed a left winger. So there are still gaps. Yes, we have moved forward a little bit. Yes, we put a trophy in the cabinet last season. But if Tottenham want to compete at the highest level, i.e. competing for the Premier League, the Champions League, year in, year out, there is a lot to do because, of course, I know you're an Arsenal fan. You're way ahead of us in terms of squad depth and quality right now.
Yeah, Chris, I'll just respond to your point about Chelsea having to win these trophies because they spent so much money. In terms of the net spend table, Chelsea are third and Spurs are fourth, and Spurs over the last 5 years in terms of net spend have spent more than Man City, who won multiple trophies, spent more than Liverpool, who won multiple trophies. So I understand your point in terms of Chelsea winning trophies, but in terms of Spurs, and I know the perception of Daniel Levy was this frugal man who ran the football club with an iron fist and wouldn't go out there and spend the money to really take you to the next level. But money has been spent and trophies, barring last season, haven't been won. And so I do take your point that Chelsea, based on the money they've spent, should be winning trophies, but also have to take into account the money that Chelsea recruit from transfers. Take into account that since 2021, the team that won the Champions League, that team is basically being gutted, and Chelsea got good fees for all of those players, and it's a completely different team right now. So I understand the point that money should equal results, but what we're seeing from this transfer window, the previous transfer window, is Liverpool, who spent over £400 million and won the league and dominated last season, can't buy a win.
Yeah. Money, of course, in the Premier League has to be spent in the right way. And, I could sit here talking about Tottenham transfers over the last few years with you for hours, saying how we've spent a lot of money and we've wasted a lot of money. I believe Chelsea have done the same. Manchester United, you could say, in the last couple of years, the amount of money they've spent and those transfers haven't worked out. All I want is the best for my football club. And, any non-Chelsea fan will always banter the Chelsea fans about how much money has been spent, because it literally looked like there was a revolving door of players come in and then they leave, a couple of months later, having, signed for the club only a couple of months ago. And, players just haven't worked out. And I feel like the recruitment has been bad there.
Do you know what I don't get, though? And I take the points from both of you, right? I'm undecided, actually, on which of these two clubs is in a better position to go on and have success over the next few years. But just to come back to something that you said, Chris, you said that you don't know what it's going to look like now, sort of post-Levy, right? That it's uncertain. It's the same owners. It's the same board to a point. How could you possibly sit here and say that, it's going to be any better or that it's going to be any worse? But then my question would be, Why the celebration? Not from you personally, but from so many Spurs fans when Daniel Levy's exit was announced. If you don't think Daniel Levy was the problem, then how can you be confident that with all the other pieces still in place, that Tottenham are actually going to push on, are actually going to take that next step? Because, we've got a list here of pros and cons. One of the pros is the stadium. Amazing stadium. Multi-use stadium. Putting the club on a really good financial footing. But at the end of the day, if the same people are calling the shots, how can you have any belief or any confidence? In that case, how can you believe that they can do more than Chelsea? I'm not sure how that works.
Absolutely, Harry. You're absolutely spot on. Daniel Levy did get a lot of stick, but of course, I believe in a number of key decisions going forward. We're going to probably miss his input in those decisions and his experience, certainly. And we don't know how differently it's going to look. We've heard a couple of weeks ago that the owners are putting £100 million. How much money of that £100 million in the January transfer window will be made available on transfers? Let's wait and see. I wouldn't think that it would be near half of that. What do you get for £50 million now? What do you get in a January transfer window anyway? So that's why I'm saying that the summer window is a real key window to see where the ambition is with this football club. But it's a key word. Every single statement, and the club, I might add, have been excellent on communication, where previous years the club have been really poor in communication to fans. Since Daniel Levy's departure, the communication has been absolutely fantastic, and they use the word ambition a lot in all of their short statements they put out. But of course, as we all know, we're all football fans. We want to see the ambition on the pitch. Tottenham Hotspur are a very, very well-run club. They've got money coming in left, right and centre from concerts, other events, etc. And we just want to see, as fans, we want to be seeing the manager backed fully, and that squad depth that we desperately need. And, like I said, Richarlison, Tell, Mawani up front for us at the moment, and Solanke out injured. When you go from Heung-min Son and Harry Kane to these likes of players, it's like chalk and cheese. It's very, very different in quality.
Speaking from like a Chelsea fan's point of view, I look at Chelsea having been pretty fortunate in terms of stumbling across Cole Palmer. We talk about the copious amounts of transfers that Chelsea have made and managed to sign Cole Palmer, which went under the radar, and he's turned out to be not only our best player, but one of the best players in the Premier League, and if not the world. And you look at different teams, right? And I think there's sorry to bore you with Americanisms, but there's faces of franchises. And I look at Arsenal. I don't think what Arsenal have done over the last 5 or 6 years could have been done without Bukayo Saka being the face of Arsenal Football Club as the front man, as that main key player. Look at Liverpool. There's a pre-Mo Salah and there's a post-Mo Salah with Liverpool. And he's kind of the face of this Liverpool resurgence in terms of competing and winning the biggest trophies. I look at Man City and I say, you are missing the Kevin De Bruyne. He was the face of Man City, being that dominant side, winning trophies year in, year out. Spurs, over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, either it went from Gareth Bale to Harry Kane in terms of having the face of the franchise. Spurs haven't got that right now, Chris. Do you think that's a big part of it? You haven't got that attacking player to lean on when things aren't going well for you. At least you know that fans who are paying the price of admission know they're going to watch a world-class superstar player leading the line or playing on the wing for Spurs. Is that what you're missing right now?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. I mentioned this on the podcast week by week, certainly the last month or so, and I ask a lot of the guests that come on, who is our star player? Who do you get excited by? Mohamed Kudus is certainly that player at the moment, and you cannot just put all of the pressure on one player. When Mohamed Kudus isn't starting games, and it's happened on a couple of occasions, even on Wednesday against Newcastle, the Bodo away game in the Champions League, when you haven't got his quality, there is a real difference. And this is what I'm saying about Spurs need that strength in depth. We need a number of quality players, and you're absolutely right. When we've had those star players over the years, you look at this squad now, and there are no superstars as such in there. João Palhinha has done a fantastic job as well. Big shout out to him. He's the number 6 that we have been crying out for. But in terms of entertainment, in terms of that flair that every Tottenham fan and opposition fan is used to seeing in a Tottenham Hotspur side, we are lacking in that area. But as I said at the very start, you can't have it all. We need to have a little bit of patience with Thomas Frank. He's done a good job so far, and he's made us a more difficult team to beat. But going back to your point, are you pretty much saying that you think that Arsenal are going to win the league this year? Then they're actually going to do it, are they?
Yeah, I do. Again, I'm saying it through gritted teeth. I hate admitting it.
That hurt Quakey to say that. It really hurt him.
We've had a great run, right? It's been 2 decades of being able to laugh at Arsenal saying, yeah, you had the Invincibles, but not won a league title since then. But I think the writing's on the wall. Throughout October, they've won every single game in multiple competitions and haven't conceded the goal and don't look like conceding the goal, really. I think this is the year that Arsenal finally win the Premier League, unfortunately, Chris.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for you, fortunately for me, if it happens. But no, this is the first year that, from an Arsenal perspective, you expect it rather than you're hoping for it. But on this debate, Chelsea Spurs, very, very difficult to split the two clubs.
You settle it, Harry.
All right, I'll settle it. I think that Chelsea are more likely to win a bigger trophy in the next few years than Tottenham, because Chelsea are more willing to roll the dice on the type of signings like Cole Palmer, like you mentioned. I look at Spurs' business in the summer and I think so much of it was underwhelming. And I'd imagine from a Spurs perspective, and Chris has kind of alluded to this, it can be a little bit frustrating when you win a Europa League, you want to see the club push on, and then you bring in attackers that aren't really doing the business. But where Spurs have an advantage over Chelsea is that there's more likelihood of stability, and stability can work. Look at Arsenal. We've just been talking about them. Arsenal's stability over the last 3 years has put them in a place where when Liverpool and Man City are off it, they're the standout candidates. It's not that Arsenal have got much better this season. It's that they've been stable, whereas the other teams have kind of been up and down. So stability can come out on top sometimes. But if I had to bet on one of your two clubs winning major silverware in the next 3 years, I'd bet on Chelsea.
Would you say that more relates to cup competitions then? Because in terms of stability, that brings you to sustained success in the league. So do you think maybe in the next 3 or 4 years, Spurs might have a higher average league position than Chelsea, but Chelsea might go on a deeper run in the Champions League, for example?
100%. Okay. That's exactly how I see it. Okay. Well put. You put it better than I did. Chris, thank you. Go on, mate.
I was going to say, Harry, you talk about stability, but you've got to admit Arsenal have also spent a lot of money, and fair play to the owners because they have actually stuck by the manager. But if you ask a lot of Arsenal fans, you guys are getting frustrated that you keep finishing second all the time.
Yeah, there is that frustration, but there is a lot of money spent. I agree, but I just think you can't win the Premier League anymore without doing that. I just think that's the way the game's gone. People say the game's gone. Yeah. It has gone. Yeah. Literally. Chris, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
You're listening to The Social on talkSPORT2. Next up, we're going to check in with William Hill.
Every emotion